So I am really sick of people being like, Labour are going to increase immigration, bro. How would they do it? I'm pretty sure we're actually at capacity. I think the only thing that's stopping the Conservatives from increasing immigration even further is the number of flights that come into Britain at this point.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the paperwork. You do
Yeah,
have to write a form.
possibly the the automated stamping process at the.
They get rid of that stamping part. That would
Right, they could always commandeer pensioners' cruises and take them to the channel instead.
They will try and commandeer pensioners' houses, which is actually something I didn't
stack in the immigrants.
But anyway,
like the old days.
So this segment's just going to be really, really infuriating. But I think the Conservatives deserve it, frankly. But before we begin, go sign up at lotuseaters.com. Use 50% the Crusade code to get 50% off gold tier. I'll get that right.
I don't feel so bad about.
Yeah, well,
I'm laughing, but I'll probably trip up over it in the next segment as well.
Yeah, my brain was like 3 steps ahead of where my mouth was supposed to be.
I've gone now. Sorry.
Anyway, go sign up. Send Calvin some questions for fatherly advice and check it out. So, I'm giving up on the
There was no information.
You're right. That was no information.
There's a thing. Hope you find it. Bye. All right, moving on.
Moving on to the thing I hate. The Conservative Party. Just look at this, right? So they posted this a couple of months ago, and I saved it just so I'll get to this. I will get to this. You cannot trust Keir Starmer to tackle immigration.
Spit. I want to spit. By the way, spit.
How much more open can the borders get, realistically? This reminds me of the OnlyFans girls finding God and deciding that they're a born-again virgin. The Conservatives, they're trying to shut that hole that's been open for far too long.
But like the idea that the Conservatives have any ground on which to criticize Keir Starmer. I mean, they're the ones who've been in power for 14 years. They're the ones who made the country look like this. But they have a whole thread here. Keir Starmer says immigration laws are racist. So do you. So do you. That's literally the position of like half the Conservative Party. Like, what the hell?
Well, their families need to get into this country somehow.
Yeah. Sorry, what the hell's wrong with people? Keir Starmer campaigned to stop us removing dangerous foreign criminals from the UK. Well, A, so what? You had a massive majority, and B, they're all still here, minus like 3,000 of them or something out of 180,000 that are here.
Even the Rochdale child rapists.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, they're bumping into their victims in the supermarket. It's like,
We're not even talking about Romanian pickpockets. Like, you can't even get rid of the worst people.
You can't get rid of Jamaican murderers and rapists. Like, they're still here because of like human rights law.
You can't get rid of a man who tries to murder somebody so that he can get deported.
Yes.
How much clearer can it get?
I mean, you know, what worse could Keir Starmer do?
Can Twitter put in a downvote thing? Because I need to hate.
That's what the ratioing is on all of the things. Everything the Conservatives post gets ratioed. Keir Starmer does not believe migrants working illegally in the UK should be prosecuted. You're paying for them to live in a hotel at my expense, and it's like, oh, and you're like, oh, but if they get a job at Deliveroo. Sorry, you're giving them my money. I'd rather they worked. So they at least had some of their, they're not like total dependence on the state. But of course, why are they here? Keir Starmer never voted for our plan to stop the boats. And how'd that go? How many boats got stopped? Not many. Not many, right? Illegal immigration is unfair and has cost this country too much for too long. I know it's the bait and switch there. Keir Starmer's going to be bad on immigration. Look at this illegal immigration that we're doing virtually nothing to change.
This feels like a really poorly applied version of like Saul Alinsky, accuse your opponents of what you're doing. Like,
yes.
They're going like, let's use these radical tactics. You suck at it.
Yeah.
You're terrible at it if that's what you're trying to do.
But Lord give me strength is all I come away from this with. It's just so insufferable that I thought we'd just go through some of the facts on this and just be like, okay, at what point could Keir Starmer do worse?
Could we just say for a minute, it's never been more clear that the Conservative Party strategy is to campaign against themselves.
Yes.
Like, that's actually how they think they're going to get reelected is,
yes.
Yeah, imagine if we did the things that we've already done. So
Keir Starmer wants the open borders that we've got. Maybe.
You've been in charge for what, 14 years now?
Yeah.
For too long, things have gone wrong.
For anyone who's been sleeping under a rock, 1.2 million immigrants in last year for some reason. Just unbelievable amount. This makes net migration 672,000 because 500,000 are leaving because they're like, God, this place. I think not. Look, there's too many foreigners. Right? No, unironically, I've had conversations with taxi drivers
Yeah, can't
where
blame.
they literally say this.
Yeah.
And it's like, this country's going to hell, man. I'm going to have to go back to India. It's like, okay. Just, I mean, this is me ratioing the hell out of the Conservatives. You did this because you did do this. I mean, just what the hell are you thinking? Just look at it.
I like the drop off of British. Some of the Brits coming back, going
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I can't wait to get back." Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Screw this place.
Yeah. Like within a couple of months of, the immigration's down, great, I'm coming back. No, not anymore. Right. Anyway, so we can see that this has changed the country. You go to lotus.com, watch this, where we're just going through old footage of what Britain used to look like and comparing it to what it looks like now.
You don't even have to go back that far because
No.
we go all the way to the 90s.
Yes.
Daisy actually sent me. Maybe I should have sent it to you. It's a BBC story about Valentine's Day in 1997 in Clapham,
Oh, yeah.
and they're interviewing people, and I'm just like, that's not what Clapham looks like.
Yep. Because all of this
Even-
has happened in the last 25 years.
That recently.
Anyway, so what's the government doing? Well, they're going to be paying TikTok stars to post videos urging the channel migrants not to come.
Mate, mate,
How does
that's
Drutka?
not on, mate.
Yeah, Drutka must get paid for this.
These are not channel migrants.
Nope.
How does that affect that?
So you think the TikToks were going to affect the channel migrants?
No, I don't. But the point is, even if they did, even if somehow the Conservatives have lucked into a winning strategy to end the channel invasion by getting people to make TikToks about it, which is actually the way that they're increasing channel invasion.
To be fair, if I was on a boat and got to the coast and saw an army of TikTokers waiting, I'd think, I'm going to turn around as well. That would be
Yeah.
far too annoying.
Guess who they're paying, though? Hi, folks. Sorry to interrupt the video, but I wanted to let you know that we've introduced a feature on the website that allows you to purchase individual videos. So if you go over to lotus.com and see a piece of premium content that you really want to watch, you can pay for it, and it is yours forever. Foreign TikTokers.
Kidding me?
No.
£15,000 has been dedicated to paying influencers in Egypt and Vietnam. The budget for Turkish, Iraqi, and Indian influencers has yet to be decided.
But a total of 500,000 has been signed off for these 5 countries. Just think about the craziness of that. And they're like, oh yeah, by the way, Keir Starmer's going to be worse on immigration. It's like, there's just no such thing. There is no such thing as being worse than you.
I need to invest in a clown nose for when I'm making appearances on this bloody podcast.
A Vietnamese TikToker is going to get an email from the Home Office saying, bro, could you help stop the channel migrants? He's be like, what the channel?
Yeah, I don't know what you'll put it through the Google translator and be like, okay. And then it's £7,000. Yeah, I'll do it.
It does all the videos in Vietnamese.
Yeah. As if Vietnamese channel migrants have been the problem. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what did you throw at a map? Like, for Christ's sake. Anyway, so let's carry on with the Conservatives' wonderful anti-Labour propaganda. All of this has just been a thorough embarrassment. I mean, you did this, right? I mean, I hate to say we're going to be talking about home building. I'm not in favor of concreting over the country, as everyone knows, but numbers have to equalize if you don't want things to go spiraling downhill. So they're like, oh, well, he won't build 100,000 new homes, but he will have 100,000 legal immigrants. You are those. You are that.
But
You were exactly that.
to be fair, they're arguing that they will let the 100,000 legal immigrants and then build the homes.
No, they won't build the homes and they will leave the immigrants. It's insufferable, right? So anyway, let's have a look at the numbers then. Right, so a quarter of the country is now foreign, right? Ooh, just sorted. But let's have a look at the housing supply, right? So I'm just going to pull out immigration numbers from, this is from the government's own website, obviously. But basically, between 1991 and 2000, 1.5 million houses were built. So that's about 200,000 a year. From 2000 to 2010, another 1.5 million houses were built. So that brings us to 3 million houses. And then between 2010 and 2019, 1.4 million houses were built. So probably about 1.7 at most. And it's been a very consistent rate. As you said, they've never hit the 300,000 target. It's always been 200,000 or lower. So let's just say 1.6 thousand. So that basically means, and by the way, right, the population of Britain in 1991, population of England and Wales was 49 million. It's now 59 million. So they have brought in 10 million extra people and built 4.5 million houses. Obviously, the price of your houses is going to go up, right? And so you didn't do it. You didn't do the thing that you said you were going to do. But Rishi Sunak's like, well, we're going to build in the brownfield sites like you were saying earlier. It's like, yep, I'm sure you will.
Won't make a dent.
That's literally the only thing to do. But listen to Rishi Sunak's comment here. I understand people's anger when the dream of home ownership feels too far away, especially for the younger generations. But we know there's much more to do. But solving the housing challenge, we must ask not just how many, but where. How about India?
Yeah, I mean, we could build the homes there if you want.
Yeah. How about Africa? Africa is colossal and the least populated continent. Africa's massive. There's hardly anyone there per square mile.
Like, isn't England, I think it's like third or something, the most popular?
I think it's the sixth, but then you've got like island or city states.
Yeah.
Like,
big countries.
Luxembourg and stuff like this, it's tiny, tiny countries.
But England's like a proper place.
Yes.
It's still one of the most densely populated places on Earth.
Luxembourg.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
You're not real.
Well, you're some sort of like, Italian city state that's got sort of protectorate.
And there's Andorra in Spain.
Yeah, stuff like that. No.
What do you think Luxembourg is?
No, I'm not saying it's Luxembourg. But
Right. San Marino and
San Marino and stuff like that. These places are technically more densely populated.
Yeah,
by millionaires because they've got yachts. But England is an actual country. So yes, but so Rishi Sunak says, right, well, I mean, we've got to do this, but where? So anyway, moving on. That's one Conservative failure. Let's move on to the next Conservative failure. This is a take that you see from people.
Yeah.
Immigration is not the reason you can't get a hospital appointment. Immigration is the only reason you can get a hospital appointment, but I can't get a hospital appointment.
There were no hospitals.
I had to wait 17 hours. And after 17 hours, they were like, yeah, you got 21 hours left. Like, what are you talking about? What? And that wasn't even an appointment. That was an emergency ward.
Yeah.
I've got a broken arm. I'm going to have to sit here for 2 days to try and get it treated. An NHS I'm sure he means the NHS, but maybe English isn't his first language. The NHS
I would give you that impression.
No, Navsir speaks English fluently. I've seen him do it, so I don't know why he's failing.
The NHS only is surviving on immigrant doctors, nurses, and support staff. So if you want to blame someone, think who's in power. Well, I mean, that is true. The people in power are responsible for this problem, but that is also not true.
But if we want to blame someone and think who's in power, what, the most diverse Conservative cabinet ever?
Yes, they are the people in power. But to be fair, they haven't always been in power. The entire Conservative Party is guilty of this for the last 14 years. So, I mean,
one that was diversified in the mid-2000s by David Cameron.
We can just go back and just see the raw number of foreigners in the country. And actually, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the doctors would come to your house when you wanted. I know you look at your face. Like, doctors would come to your house. You'd ring them up and say, "Excuse me, Mr. Smith or Dr. Smith, I have a problem with whatever. Could you please come and help me and have a look at it?" And so they'd, I'll come over on Tuesday if that's okay. Yeah, brilliant.
It's back when you had to pay for healthcare?
No, this is the NHS, obviously, right?
And this is even before Carl's time.
This isn't. Well, I was born in '79, so I don't remember it. I remember my parents telling me about this, right? But this isn't like in the 19th century where you're paying for the doctors. No, this is the NHS, right? They used to come to your house, right? And the NHS didn't have all of these problems.
I've said before, the NHS. And to
the
be
NHS
fair,
used to work.
Yeah, it used to work. The actual population in sheer numbers of British people in this country is basically the same, if not slightly less, than it was back then. So the NHS,
we've got exactly the numbers there.
The NHS would probably work fine, if it was just British people.
Yeah, and so as if we couldn't run an NHS by ourselves, even though within living memory it used to be quite good, actually. Moving on. So I thought we'd just look at the NHS workforce. So, I mean, we covered, in fact, there we go. Right, so just going back to this, 25% of the country is not English or Welsh. So, okay, fair enough. So let's go back to the NHS workforce. They say that out of NHS staff whose ethnicity was known, 74.3% were white, and 25.7% were from ethnic minority groups. Well, that really maps up quite well, doesn't it?
Almost to the decimal point.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, so if these people weren't here, then the NHS could be scaled back to this proportionate to the normal population of the country.
And you wouldn't have to deal with any scams. Such
Yeah.
as this Nigerian scam.
Well, we'll get to that. But what about if we speak specifically about London? Is this the right thing? Yeah. NHS staff from overseas, for example. So in the non-UK London residents, more than 4 in 10 usual residents in, oh sorry, no, this is the London ones. 4 in 10 usual residents in London were not UK born, and 1 in 5 had a non-UK passport. This is, of course, London being 37% white British, so basically meaning 37% English, 40% foreign, and 23% have a non-UK passport. Right. So you might think, okay, well, London's NHS must be representative of that percentage. If immigrants are holding up the NHS, then London's NHS must be 63% non-white British.
Well, if they're holding it up, it wouldn't be equivalent. It would be higher even.
Even that, right? So it turns out that actually, and it's from this thing anyway, that actually in London, only 30% of the staff report a non-British nationality. So they are so massively underrepresented in London's NHS that it makes you wonder where they're getting their numbers from. Anyway, and these are numbers from the House of Commons library. Like, I'm not like going some like weird crackpot. Oh, it's Parliament. Maybe I am.
I've got you there.
But anyway, so this was what you were talking about very briefly, as Maven has got his little commentary on this. NHS nurses being investigated for industrial scale fraud. What's happening? Well, they're getting someone to take the tests for them in Nigeria, paying them however, I don't even know what the currency in Nigeria is, however many Nigerian pennies is required to get them to do this. And so now you have the certificate fraudulently, and then you get to come over to the UK because they're like, God, we need those foreigners to prop up our NHS, even though there's literally no evidence.
And then you give grandma an infection.
Well, no, I mean, God, that's probably the least of the problems. Do you really want a bunch of Nigerian doctors and nurses with
who aren't doctors and nurses?
Yeah, going right. Okay, good luck, doctor. He's just like,
If only I hadn't qualified as a dentist.
Yeah, exactly. Why did I sign up for proctologist? But anyway, I like this. Get caught out in a rare moment of bureaucratic competency.
Oh my God.
Right. We don't know what the qualifications of all of the rest of them are like. Because, I mean, weirdly enough, have you ever seen like foreign driving tests?
They're not the same.
They're not the same. Right. I remember seeing...
I know someone who bribed their way to getting their license.
I remember seeing years ago an Egyptian one, and it's literally moved the car backward and forward. And it was just like... yeah. And it's like, right, that's good.
What's the accident rate on the roads in Egypt, I wonder?
I can only imagine it's really low because diversity is a strength. Anyway, so how does this work out for the NHS? Well, it's just one of the worst healthcare systems in the world by the metrics, by like the results.
Yeah,
and that's after the people get treated, right? We're not talking about the amount of people waiting. Once you get treated, it's one of the worst things you've ever done. So when David Cameron's like, hey guys, what we're going to do is we're going to bring kids from Gaza over to get treated by the NHS. Like, David, we know you support Israel.
They've suffered enough.
Yeah, they've suffered enough.
It's like, no, please send me back.
I don't support the genocide, David.
Hello, kids. We've got you a load of nurses from Nigeria. Do they have qualifications? Well, they say they do.
It is like...
Doesn't all this compound as well? Because you get the numbers coming in, putting more strain on the system. You get people committing fraud to come and work here. Then you go there. They've committed fraud, so they don't know how to fix you. So you go in, you're not fixed, and then you have to come back in the week after and say, listen, I'm still ill. I'm still dying. I'm still bleeding. You didn't actually stitch anything up. You put a plaster on it. And then you're there again, and the cycle carries on and on and on.
Yeah, the only place that was worse is the US, which is probably the only place on earth that has more immigration than Britain, actually. I'm not saying there's necessarily a causation there, although there obviously
I think Canada also has an enormous amount of immigration. So
Yeah. But ours is the second worst, as you can see, with only the US being worse. But whose is the best?
Japan.
by a goddamn metric mile.
Whew.
And who has the least amount of immigration on that graph? That's really weird. Really weird. But yeah, the NHS is terrible.
But also, look at the trend that's going on here. So the red dot is 2018, black 2019, blue 2020. So with America, it's getting worse quite considerably. Britain, UK, it's getting worse. Japan is getting better.
Yeah.
It's Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Italy for some reason.
Denmark as well. But
France has
barely.
really fallen there. But interestingly, Denmark's like, yeah, we're going to start cracking down on immigration. And suddenly the health service starts getting better. I just can't explain it. And I'm not saying there's necessary causation. It's just, why are you inflicting this on people? Anyway, moving on. So let's go back to the NHS waiting times, just to give some actual numbers to the literally 48 hours you need to wait to get into A&E. As of December 2023, there were 7.6 million people on waiting lists. Before the pandemic, it was 4.6 million. Around 3.3 million of these have been waiting over 18 weeks for an appointment. Again, doctors used to come to your house. 337,000 of these have been waiting over a year for treatment. And the median waiting time for treatment is 15 weeks. And then when you get treated,
cancer, I'd rather not be here.
Yeah. But then when you get treated, the treatment's the second worst in the world. Just incredible, isn't it? But anyway, the reason for the 12-hour waits in A&E isn't because people don't speak English in these places anymore. It's because we're systematically underfunding the NHS. Another canard that is obviously not true, because we can just go and literally look at the budget annually.
Going up in real terms.
These are the additional COVID spending. But yes, the budget has just been going up and is continued to be forecast to go up forever.
And that's in real terms. So yes, it does take inflation into account. Yeah, boy.
There's no saving the NHS because of what we're doing to it, what the Tories do. Anyway, thank God for all that economic growth, eh?
Yeah, that was worth it. Things may be getting worse, but trust me, the migrants will prop up the economy, even if they don't work in the NHS.
This is standard conservative doctrine.
Yeah.
We get people in, economy grow.
The stupidest thing ever.
Economy shrank. I mean, I'm no logician, but a basic syllogism of that should be enough to persuade the entire Conservative Party that's just not the case. Right? It should just be, again, starkly obvious, but what can you do?
This is why I said the one graph that they're actually worshipping is that immigration graph. They're seeing it literally go off the charts and saying, well, we must be doing something right.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how it's connected to other things. But anyway, so then you get this, again, just unbelievable. Rishi's plan for the economy is sound: reduce borrowing, reduce debt, reduce inflation. That hasn't happened. What are you talking about?
None of those things have happened. He's been in charge. He was the, the Chancellor before he became
was
Prime
the
Minister.
Chancellor of the Exchequer under Boris. And I mean, it's only 2.5 trillion.
Oh, thank God.
Is that a lot? I'm not good with numbers.
Yeah, I would have worried if you'd said 2.5 trillion, but because you put only in front of it, I'm reassured.
I don't know. But it also doesn't look like it's going to go down. So, you know what I mean? I don't really think you can blame. I mean, look at when LaBOuR were in charge, when it was 500 billion.
Oh, the good old days.
Yeah, no, literally the good old days is now when Tony Blair was in charge. Anyway, halving inflation. No, you didn't do it. The Bank of England does it because they're the ones responsible for it. So Rishi Sunak gets community noted on his brag. Obviously not true. Never mind. Inflation is, of course, outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. The consumer price index, all these other measures of inflation. I'm not going to go into this.
But I kind of hate how this is all reported because it's like, oh, it's only 4% now, which people then think, well, what do you do with that?
Well, that's compounded on what it was previously. So it was 10, 12, 11, 4. And you think, well, that's that problem solved then.
Well, that's also double the Bank of England's general target as well,
2%,
which is the 2%, which we're always told by expert economists is what's the best rate of inflation, because that means that you can get a good rate of investment into the country. But what that means, again, is that you're just constantly inflating the budget, you're constantly inflating the debt that we owe, you're constantly printing a certain amount of money, which is going to be having to be paid out again sometime in the future, maybe. So if anybody ever called in the debts.
So it turns out that I'm no economist, right? But if you have a certain amount of money and then a certain number of resources, there's some sort of mechanism that connects them together.
And if I inflate the currency supply,
Then that makes everyone have more money, but the money itself worth less. But what happens if you reduce the resource supply? Oh, that's good, because that's what happened when we went to war. Well, we didn't go to war when Russia declared war on Ukraine, and we were like, right, okay, well, we will boycott Russia and make sure there's no peace deal. And of course, who did that? Well, Boris did that, actually, make sure that's the case. So you can thank Boris for that. And this is what Nadine Dorris says.
And he does want us to go and die.
Oh yeah.
As well. You know, he's making sure that he knows that we know that he would definitely be first in the front line.
Harry, I know that you are desperate to die for the global regime in Ukraine. Hang on.
When I see Boris, I think, what a trustworthy looking man. I'll do what he suggests.
Harry, stop thinking of your own glory, okay? This is the problem. You're desperate to die in Boris's war while he's on a beach saying, no, guys, you need to do this. But how is grandma going to afford her heating bills and her food after you're dead? You're so selfish wanting this war to persist.
Well, Rashid will do it somehow, I assume.
Yeah, and so, anyway, the Conservatives were like, well, we're going to triple fines for employing illegal immigrants. Why are they here? Why is there a single illegal immigrant in this country? Just pick them up and deposit them wherever they came from. That's all you need to do. But for some reason, the Conservatives, of course,
Eisenhower did it across a much vaster expanse of land with 750 guys in the 50s.
The thing about this is, okay, don't employ illegal immigrants. You know exactly who the illegal immigrants are. And I know you know because you're going to start finding people for having illegal immigrants, but also you're paying for them and you know where they live. Because I can walk past the hotels in which they're in. Like, don't be like, oh, we just can't find them, bro. No, you know exactly who they are and where they are and what they're doing. Like, sorry, you're the one, like, your bureaucratic apparatus accounts for all of these people. And they're like, yeah, but they've got to be total dependence on the state. Why? Right? Anyway, so everything's going great, by the way, at the asylum centers, as the BBC had to report. Everything's great. It's just nightly fights and stuff, because this is...
Maybe they're hoping the problem will solve itself.
Hoping like a warlord will take control of it or something, maybe. I don't know. It's just insufferable. And so when asked, people are like, yeah, actually everything's going down the tubes, right? And it's under the Conservatives. They've done this, and they have the gall to say, by the way, it's going to be worse under Labour. I don't think it will be, actually. I think it'll be exactly the same at worst, because you can't make this worse. But anyway, according to a YouGov poll, 80 or what percent was it? No, like 75% of people said things were either much worse or somewhat worse. Only 1% of people thought the party had left the country in a much better state. I want to meet them. I want to meet those 1%. I want to meet them. So on what metric? Well, the Yimbys are like, well, we've got more buildings.
Well, look, coma patients are hard to find, but they don't know what's happened in the last 5 years.
Well, no, this gives us the Yimby constituency. Yeah, it's 1% of the country because they're young and stupid. And they don't know anything outside of London. There we go. And so anyway, they're going to get a good kicking. You were big on this the other day, weren't you?
Good news.
It's great news.
If you're a disaffected Conservative, please don't vote Labour. Labour are still evil and will ruin the country, just the same as the Conservatives already are.
Yeah, but it's just going to be proportionate. If the Conservative voters just don't vote and the Labour voters do vote, you'll still end up with a graph like this. Now, this is just one poll. Although I have to say, Redfield and Wilton have been pretty good in the past. They're one of my favoured polling places. There are other polls that say, well, hang on a second. It's just going to be a landslide defeat in which the Labour Party have a majority of 50 to 60 seats, which would give them the power that the Conservatives currently have to do whatever it is they like. So either way, it's looking for a pretty bad defeat. And would Labour do something about immigration? Maybe. Tony Blair's probably like, why is it at 1 million? It's meant to be at 500,000. That was what I set for the long, unstoppable destruction of the country. It's entirely possible that Labour will get net migration to 200,000 a year, which would be a significant improvement of the Conservatives. So I know I'm going on this, but this just...
No, it wouldn't, though, because, of course, that's like saying inflation's dropped to 4% per year.
Yes.
That's a rate of change.
Yes. But having the rate of change slower, possibly better. But I mean, it depends how much of an accelerationist you are.
But just, the house supply versus house demand doesn't actually get equalized by bringing it down to 200,000. So
totally true.
The gap still gets worse every year.
Yeah. I mean, it's still going to be net, obviously. So you are correct. But I don't know. It just feels like net 200,000 is better than net 700,000.
Why?
I don't know.
You still can't get anything.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no, they're both going to be just as terrible as each other.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Epoch series, this episode on Edward the First Part 2. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.